do I start? Okay, I'm just going to get going. So hi everyone, welcome to today's session on the slate with Backstage. My name is Hannah and I'm the UK casting specialist at Backstage. I'm also a casting director. And today we have National Youth Theatre who are working with us on this session. And we're really going to be breaking down the process of applying for drama school and drama courses right now, because things look very different. They've looked very different for the last year with going to drama courses and how we're studying and how we're showcasing afterwards. And we've got some great content about that on Backstage already. But today we're talking about the audition process remotely, which I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I was thinking, oh God, we're not going to be at that stage when we're actually auditioning people. But hey ho, here we are. So we've got two really great people running the session today that I'm going to leave you with in a moment. We've got Abigail Rose, who is an associate artist for National Youth Theatre. And we've also got Harrison Tipping, who is a National Youth Theatre member. And this session is, as I say, going to be breaking down the whole process. And Abby is going to be using Harry to show you some practical ways of doing things so that you can see it in real world situations on what all these things mean when we're saying you need to move the camera this way or you need to pick the speech this way or whatever. So I will leave you in their very capable hands. Please do pop in your questions in the Q&A box and I will be back in a while to field all of those for you. Thanks so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Nice to be here. Not to see you physically, but nice to be here. And I'm really happy to have Harrison with me today, who, as Hannah said, is a National Youth Theatre member. So, Harrison, why don't you just give us a little lowdown of what you've been up to with the National Youth Theatre recently?
Thank you, Abby. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you on this virtual platform. I'm Harrison, or Harry, and I joined the National Youth Theatre in 2017. And from there, I went to drama school, so I didn't do anything for 2 years with them. But due to the pandemic, I came home. And in October, I had the privilege to get involved in The Last Harvest, which was a show that they put on about climate change. And that was the first project I'd done with them. And it was just one of the best on stage experiences I've had. It was out in the middle of a field. It was live, which was crazy to do in the pandemic. And we just had the opportunity to work with an actual space outside rather than kind of working on a stage in a theatre, which was just a great, thing to get involved with. And from that, I then did a play read with a theatre company in New York. They linked up with a theatre company called Off the Page Theatre Company. And we did All American Boys, which is a play on police brutality. We did a week kind of rehearsal and development with that, and we did a little performance of that. And that was kind of really eye-opening, just with the topic of conversation that we were talking about, and kind of having a platform to see lots of different perspectives about that issue, kind of presented through the form of a play and online as well, kind of getting used to this Zoom environment. And then recently, I've just done a project called Silent Statues, which was a rehearsal and development. And that was talking about the voices in communities that we feel like don't have a voice and all the unsung heroes. Again, it was just such a great experience and kind of using Zoom to our benefit of how can we use this platform to still communicate and tell stories was just a great kind of outlet. And that's so far what I've done with the National Youth Theatre. It's been such a great experience every time I do something with them. And I look forward to getting involved in more projects just because the faculty and all the people that you meet doing it are kind of really kind-hearted and hardworking. So that's my story with the Youth Theatre so far.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So with the National Youth Theatre, I've worked for them for many years. I was also a member and I was part of their rep company, one of the first years of doing that actually. And it really changed my life as a performer, as a director, as a practitioner, the way I think about making making art and working with people. So the National Youth Theatre, we're really big on collaborative work and working together as a team. It's incredibly important. The word ensemble is used a lot, which actually makes this all a bit difficult, because when we do auditions, so this is for the National Youth Theatre, our first round is usually a 3-hour workshop in the room with someone like myself and someone else, and then we meet you afterwards. So we'll do this workshop and then we meet you, but obviously we can't do that this year, and we couldn't do that last year for most of the year. So the next best thing is this, but this is a format that we might not be so familiar with when it comes to auditioning. So we've all sat on our Zoom calls and quizzes every weekend, but we might not have been auditioning through Zoom. So it is different, and it's something we have to think about. So I've been watching lots of fantastic tapes that have been sent in. So we want to give you some insight and some top tips on how to really ace those online auditions. So not just for the National Youth Theatre, but also for your drama school auditions or any auditions you have at the moment. How to really pick those best speeches, how to record the tape, and then how to do that recall. When you get the recall, if you're doing a live audition, again, it's very different. So let's get stuck in. The first thing we have to do is we have to pick a speech. Now, picking a speech is like looking for the Holy Grail. And it's not easy. It's not an easy. If it's easy, it's got to be a little bit hard. You've got to really search for it, because you've got to find that speech that when you read it for the first time, you're feeling something. There's something going on. I would always, when I was looking for speeches, I would literally look for an initial connection. It's like speed dating, but for speeches. You've got to find that initial connection, whether that's Shakespeare or whether that's modern, contemporary. Now, the usual advice I would give people is get out there, go to bookshops, go and find your plays. Now, obviously, it's not so easy to do that at the moment, but this is when having really good communities around you, talking to people. So what did you see last year or the year before or whenever we saw theatre last? What have you seen recently? Did you see anything interesting at Edinburgh? Have you got any friends who have written any good plays? Oh, what's going on here? There's so much going on online, and the National Youth Theatre as well have their own books, and we have so many monologues you can look at. Also, there's a company called the Monobox who are fantastic when it comes for looking for monologues. Look up the Monobox, because they have so many monologue suggestions that I'd really suggest you look into at the moment, because obviously so much is done online. So when it comes to picking a speech, think about who you are. Who are you? What do you want to show? What resonates within you? And then your speech has to, I wouldn't say reflect you, but you need to feel very comfortable within it. So I wouldn't choose anything that was, if you're 16 years old, I wouldn't choose a 60-year-old, for example. I'd stick within where you are at the moment, because what we want to see is ultimately truth. And think of that in acting when you're watching anything. What do you want to see? You want to see some sort of connection. Now, whether that's a hugely comedic piece, whether that's something a bit surreal, you can still be truthfully connected. Truthful connection is at the heart of believable and interesting performance. So you want to choose something which isn't too far away from your age range, and I wouldn't choose something that wasn't in your native accent. I know lots of us hate our accents, don't we? And we were like, oh no, I hate my accent. But actually, your accent's lovely because it's yours and no one else has got it. That's your uniqueness, is the fact that no one else has the same voice as you. So I'd stick to your accent and I'd stick to your truth ultimately, because drama schools and the National Youth Theatre, at this initial stage, we just want to see a part of you. And especially when it comes to auditioning, when it's not live, we can't get that flavour of you as much. So it's really important that you pick something that isn't too far away from yourself. Harrison, do you agree with that?
Wholeheartedly, Abby. Yeah, like you say, I think the more you can find a speech that you feel like you can connect to on a personal level and is going to work to show your strengths, the better. And I think, I mean, something that when I'm kind of looking for a speech to see if it kind of really stimulates me, and if there's something within the language or the story or something about the character that I feel like I can relate to. I think especially when you're talking about a first round audition, it's so important to find that piece that you feel like you can connect to and just show a bit of yourself. I think, like Abby said, the most important thing is you can do is work to your strengths, and the more we can see of you and who you are as a person and being proud of your voice, your physicality, everything about yourself, it's just going to shine if you pick a monologue that you feel you can really kind of relate to.
Absolutely. So at the National Youth Theatre specifically, because it's different for everywhere you audition, they might ask for different things. So really read the specifications very carefully, because some people want a published play after 2000, for example. So read those specifications. But for the National Youth Theatre, we want a monologue just from a published play and no longer than 2 minutes. Now, here's the catch. No longer than 2 minutes is actually there to help you. I would really stick to that. 2 minutes, we can see so much in 2 minutes. And if you do longer than that, you're actually doing yourself a slight disservice, because we can see what we need to see in 2 minutes. And if you give it too long, you give us too long to think. You want us to watch you in that 2 minutes and get a flavour for you and go, oh, that's really interesting. Okay, I'd like to do this. But if it goes on, you're giving us sort of, it's in a way too much. So give us less to make us want more in the future. So I would really stick to that, because I know sometimes you think, oh, but there's this lovely bit at the end and I just really want to do that. Well, see if you can manipulate that speech a little bit to make sure you do get that journey within it, because you don't want to stop halfway through a speech if it hasn't got to that end climactic moment, but rejig it to make sure we can get to that point quicker. That's absolutely fine. So you can do a monologue from a published play, and that can be Shakespeare as well. So we can hear Shakespeare too. Or we can have a piece of spoken word. So that can be from a published spoken word, or it can be written by yourself. So if you're really into that, we'd absolutely love to see a bit of your spoken word. And again, no longer than 2 minutes. Or we would hear a completely original story, which was, again, no longer than 2 minutes. Here's my top tip, though. If you're going to do an original story or a piece of spoken word, really make sure there is a performative aspect of it. It's not just like a reading of a story to us. It's like you want us to go on that journey with you just as much, and we want to believe those moments in the stories just as much as if it was a performed piece. So see it maybe not so much as it's like you're a character within telling those stories, rather than I'm just sitting and telling you, reading a story to you. So if that's your thing, that's great. However, I was saying this to Harrison earlier, I'm not a writer. That's not, I try, but it's not very good. And so I trust that other people can write better things for me to perform. So, and that's fine too. No pressure. You don't have to think, oh, I think it would really make me stand out if I wrote my own thing. If you're not into that, but if you are into that, absolutely go for it for the National Youth Theatre. However, that isn't the same for lots of drama schools. So just, again, be sure to read that specification, what people want, and go for it from there. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Shakespeare and choosing a Shakespeare speech. So for the National Youth Theatre, I know it's the same for some drama schools as well. You can cross-gender cast, you can do anything you want. So you can play whoever you want. And I wouldn't say that you should or shouldn't, or just do whatever you're connected to. So you can read through all the genders. You can basically read the whole of the works and choose from that, which is really exciting. So, maybe read a speech that you didn't think you would do, just to test yourself out. Say, oh, I might want to have a go at that Hamlet speech, or, see if you connect to it, because it might be quite interesting. Here's another thing with the Shakespeare. We are in no way expecting you to do a Shakespeare in like an RP accent in a particular way. You are auditioning to either train at a drama school or come and work with the National Youth Theatre and be part of the company. We are not expecting a full package of someone who can just reel out verse. It's not we're not expecting that. So don't put that pressure on yourself. But what you should do is really understand the context of whatever speech that you're doing. Now, place it somewhere. Make sure you're not just doing a speech thinking, I'm going to do a Juliet speech, but I'm just going to do a Juliet speech. In your head, like, be the director. Think, right, where are we? Are we in 2021? Am I in my bedroom? Am I Juliet in my bedroom sitting there waiting? You know, that's actually quite a nice way to do it. You know, you could really you can really connect to that. So don't just have it in like an ethereal place, because that's what we do sometimes with Shakespeare, isn't it? We sort of go, oh, it's a bit beyond, I'm sort of thinking of it in the whatever hundreds. But I don't know, it might be interesting to place it within you. You are that person in that modern day. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. And it might help you to get that connection and speak in your own language, speak in your own accent. Because what they might do, and what we've done before, is when you get to your recall stage, they might say, okay, let's do that Shakespeare speech again, but I'd like you to not speak it in prose, or I'd like you to just sort of rap it, or I want you just to say it in your own language. So you've got to understand it, really deeply understand it. A good way of doing that, I mean, there is nothing wrong with a bit of No Fear Shakespeare. Like, get on there, read it, find out what those words mean. There's this dictionary, and I always call it the Onions Dictionary. Now, it's not that, but it's spelled onions, but basically it's the Shakespeare Dictionary. So I used to look up I still do it, I look up every word before I say it, because it would have meant something differently then, and I want to be able to connect to every single word. So don't be afraid to bring the Shakespeare to you, because I know a lot of people feel a bit, I don't know, they can be a bit blocked by the language, which is totally understandable. Harrison, any other top tips for choosing a Shakespeare speech?
Well, as you just said then, Abby, I think sometimes when we kind of read Shakespeare, it kind of feels like this alien language that we don't understand. So I think using those websites like No Fear Shakespeare, which all actors use, you are never too old to use that. Or there's a thing called a lexicon as well, which is like a Shakespeare, a kind of like dictionary, which gives definitions of the words, are really useful. I think the more you can understand the text, the more comfortable you're going to feel with what it is you're saying. And as Abby said, the more you can kind of pull it to you and like place it in a circumstance that you feels real, and picking a partner who you think you'd be delivering this speech to, can really kind of like ground you in this kind of circumstance of, this feels really real to me. And the final thing I'd say is the beauty about Shakespeare is, although the language can feel kind of so alien to us, the themes are also kind of relevant today. It's themes of love, of loss, of friendship, of conflict. And the more we can like place it in this world of, maybe I'm speaking to this person who I really like right now, rather than, oh, it's Juliet and the balcony, and oh, I've never seen a balcony before. You know, there's this idea of like, this is real to me, and I know who that person is across from me, and I know what it's like to kind of be in love with somebody and try to articulate how I feel. And the language is so kind of luxurious, so we can play around with that. So the more you understand the language, brilliant. Like Abby said, set it in a world that feels close to you. So someone like a partner who you might know, an area that you might know, just really try and ground yourself in those kind of circumstances. That's what I do for Shakespeare.
Perfect, thank you. So this brings me on to like the theme of a speech, or the genre of a speech. So I know that when I was younger, when I was auditioning for like the National Youth Theatre, I always thought I have to do something really dramatic. I've got to make sure like they know I can be like really dramatic and like emotional and really like show my emotions. However, what I would say is, we're not looking, and one is not looking in an actor to see if they can show their emotions. You're looking for someone who can feel emotions and then do whatever they need to do to hide it, or do something to make sure they get what they want in the scene. What you want is far more important than the showing your feelings. You know, when you're in those situations, you know what it's like. You know, when you really want to cry, but you're with lots of people and it's like really embarrassing, but I need to do something, so I can't cry right now, so I need to do something else. But it doesn't mean that I don't feel like I want to cry. You know, I feel it, but I'm definitely not going to show you that. That push and pull is a bit more interesting. So let's think about emotional speeches. If you're going to choose a really emotional speech, just make sure you're not hitting me with the top of your emotion right at the beginning of that speech, because I'm just going to be on one track with you and I'm not going to go anywhere with you. We've got to start somewhere and finish somewhere else. So I also want to encourage you, if you're into comedy and you enjoy comedic speeches and you enjoy lightness, don't be afraid to do that in an audition. It's really lovely to see that. Actually, you see a lot of like really gutsy emotional speeches, which are, you know, fantastic in their own right. But, you know, if you've got that, if you're good at comedy, if you're really funny and you can be really truthful with your comedy, you are never going to be penalized. It's not like you're not doing acting because you're funny. It's like complete opposite, you know. So lighter toned speeches with big things at stake. There's lovely speeches I've seen. There's one and it's this girl proposing to her boyfriend, and there's just so much at stake in this speech, and it's just so lovely to watch because it's so rich and true. But she's not crying, she's not screaming, she's not having this really heightened emotional experience. It's like, but so much is going on within her. There's so much push and pull. So don't be afraid of those speeches. Okay, let's get on to the actual nitty-gritty of recording the self-tape. So loads of you might have done these before, but lots of you might not have done these before. And it's really different. A lot of actors, you would do it quite, you know, often before, not all the time, but now obviously professional actors are having to do it all the time as well. So with the National Youth Theatre, and I know it's the same for many drama schools as well, we are not looking for a beautifully edited and produced tape. In no way will you be judged by the quality of your tape. However, saying that, we do want to be able to hear you and see you. So do a check. So do a little check before. Just make sure that, you know, you haven't aced that tape and then the sound's all over the place or it's crackling or something like that. It's absolutely fine just to film it on a smartphone or anything that's easily accessible to you. Just make sure you've got some space around you. So let's look at Harrison, his setup at the moment. So Harrison, would you just show how you've set yourself up? You see he's got this lovely blue background. It really brings out Harrison's eyes as well. So that's a really good decision. So with his white top, he's really standing out. I'm not distracted by that background. It's sort of enhancing Harrison. But let's see what's behind the background, Harrison.
What's behind the Swan Act? Okay, yeah, sure thing. So like Abby said, I think the key thing when self-taping is you don't want anything that feels kind of distracting. And sometimes kind of like having like pictures and kind of like windows and people walking past can distract the kind of audience member who's watching. I know that can be really hard kind of depending on where you're living and what kind of space you have. I mean, I've got this blue backdrop that I got off Amazon. I think it was about £20. But you can just use a plain kind of black background. So it could be a white wall or a black wall or kind of anything. Just so it doesn't distract from kind of the performance that they're trying to see. I've also invested in a light, so I'm just going to take you with me in my bedroom, which is like that. You can kind of use any light. It's just something that can really kind of enhance, like Abby said, kind of your look and make you look a little bit more kind of presentable in a way. I know on Zoom you can touch up your appearance. I'm not that technically advanced, so I don't know how to do that. But yeah, the less distractions going on in the background, kind of the better. And a good thing that I learned is because we can't kind of see your whole body, we're trying to get the frame that's just kind of nicely. So it's kind of just from the rib cage just above and just leaving kind of a little bit of space at the top of your head. Just so I have this movement within the frame where I can kind of move, I can come close to the camera, I can go back, just enough space to move without it being too distracting. And finally, this is the rest of my bedroom. So for example, if I was to perform like this, it might just be a little bit distracting with these lovely photos of the sun or kind of like my little fireplace in my red bedroom. But yeah, the less distractions, the better. And don't worry about feeling like you need to spend loads of money on like kind of getting these brilliant setups, because you can just simply do it with a plain wall, a bedside lamp, and make sure that your camera is kind of framing your body. So it's the rib cage above. and that we can just see your face, and that way we're able to see kind of your performance without it being distracting or too far back as well.
Great. Definitely this is important. So you don't have to show us, unless it says in the specification that they want to see you doing it with a full body. I would always say you want to do, rib cage up. You want to be able to see this, but also you do want to have some space for a bit of movement. Now, I'm obviously sitting down right now. Now, I think, Harrison, you're standing up, aren't you?
Yes, I am, yeah.
Yeah, I think that is a good idea. If you can do that, it is a good idea. You will have to spend, I mean, every time you do a self-tape, I'm spending, I did get a tripod in the end for my phone, like a phone tripod. But you don't have to do that. I've spent years just putting things on bookcases and finding, you've got to spend a while doing your setup, but your setup's really important. Another tip is if you've got, a white bed sheet, make sure it's ironed, and you can just put it up behind the door, and just so it's floating down behind the door, so you just got that blank space behind you. We've all been there in the news interviews where I'm more interested in what book's on the shelf than the background. So you just got it all on you. Now we can see here with Harrison, he's like right in that frame, which is great, and the space he's got around him I think is perfect. So just make sure you've done a few tester runs. So we've got the setup. Let's say you've done it let's say you're doing it on your phone, and you've done a few tests. Now, where do we look? Now, in the professional acting world, if I was to do a self-tape, I usually get someone to do it with me. And there's usually some dialogue. Because if you're talking to someone, I'd want to have someone there. Now, usually I don't have a professional actor in my house, unfortunately. So I'll just get my partner to come and do it with me, and they're not an actor, but I'll say, right, sit there, just let me do this for a second. So, and I feel comfortable enough to do that, because it is good to have someone there. And I mean, absolutely amazing if they are a professional actor in the room. But it can be really useful, especially for monologues. This can be a bit of in the room at NYT. We do have someone with us, an assistant with us, who you can direct the monologue to. But obviously you don't hear. So if you do want to use someone, just make sure they don't say anything. I do think that's a good idea. But if not, if you're just doing it to the wall, which sometimes you'll have to do in the room anyway, and especially with some drama school auditions, you've really got to get used to having that point, but make sure you know exactly where you're looking, or else your eyes are going to go all over the place. So you've got to know who you're speaking to, even if they're not physically there. Who is that person? Is it the audience? Is it your scene partner in it? You've really got to think about that, but don't have them. So if the camera's here for me, I'd want to sort of be like here-ish. If I'm over here, you can't really see what I'm doing. And then if I keep on moving around, it's going to be very distracting. So have a focus. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Okay, let's move on to recording your questions. Now, for some auditions for the National Youth Theatre, we ask some questions in your first round of self-taping. These questions are, you've got to introduce yourself first of all, and then you've got to say any facts about yourself that you think might be a bit interesting, anything you'd like to share with us. And then we ask you why you want to join the National Youth Theatre. Other than acting, tell us what you're passionate about, and tell us a time when you believe you've had a positive impact on another person. So usually you wouldn't really know those questions we were going to ask. I'd just sit with you in a room and just talk to you about, all these sorts of things. And I might ask this or I might not, but obviously, you're going to be answering these questions. So we really want to get a sense of you in these tapes. So I'd say don't over rehearse your answer. Have thought about it, definitely. But when it comes to answering it, let it come as natural as possible, because otherwise it feels a bit too rehearsed and we don't get to know you. Remember, there's no right answer. I had someone, say to me the other day, my interesting fact is that I love garlic bread. and that's great. Like there's no right or wrong answer. Whatever you say is right. So believe in what you're saying, and you don't have to try and second guess that at all. And that's the same with all those drama school auditions. Ultimately, we want to see you at your raw state of you being you not being a version of yourself, because as an actor, it's incredible. You've got to be incredibly raw. You've got to be incredibly connected to your feelings. You've got to be really open, and you've got to be open to taking direction and working with other people. So don't block yourself on those questions. Just let them flow. Let's actually talk about how many times should you record your tape. Now, this is one thing. So usually you just come in and you do it and you walk out and you go, oh, it's terrible, oh, it's brilliant, you just get that feeling. But you don't have that with a self-tape. You can really spend so long on them. So my advice is, don't record it too many times, because you will just be spending so long on it, and ultimately you'll be picking out these little bits. I'd say a maximum 4, maybe one like practice, and then really then go for it, because if you do it too many times, you're going to lose the magic of it. And try not to be too harsh on yourself. I would say, if you're going to show it to someone else, show it to someone you really trust their opinion. Don't show it to too many people, because remember, this is a subjective world. So one person might think something, one person might think something else. So show it to a mentor of yours or someone you really trust. But don't show it to too many people, because ultimately this is you. This is you in the moment. This is your moment. Okay, Harrison, do you think I've missed anything out about the recording?
No, I think you've got everything. The only thing that came to my mind is one thing that I learned as well, is it's better to try and have your phone landscape as opposed to portrait. I don't know if you knew that as well, Abby, if you've been told about that, just because sometimes with the portrait, it kind of shows a little bit too much of the body. And I've kind of been seeing on a couple of like tutorials that it's sometimes nicer just to have it in landscape. And as Abby said, you can spend ages kind of like taking your time with your setup and do. So then when you feel like you've got the kind of the perfect framing, the lighting's nice and you don't have a distracting background, as Abby said, then you can just take your time with your performances and not having to feel like I need to do 100 and then show mum and dad and get 2 conflicting views. Just pick someone who you trust. And as Abby said, just be yourself. I mean, that's what these auditions are about. We're here to see you and who you are, your truthful and your rawness as a human being, and accept how you feel as well, because, auditions can be really nerve-wracking, but I think if you can embrace the fact that this is how I feel right now, I feel a little bit nervous, I'm excited as well, I'm going to take that energy positively and I'm just going to give it all I have into these couple takes, or whether it's a live audition, and your auditioner will really, really appreciate that. So yeah, that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good point. The person on the other side who's going to be watching it, someone like myself, I completely respect and understand this situation as well. And I know that so many of you will not have done this before. So, we're by no means sitting here going, not sure about that lighting. We just, no. We're going to completely accept anything you give us. And we're just happy that you want to do it, and we still want to be performing and auditioning. I think it's incredibly important. The art of auditioning is really important in this creative landscape. So if it doesn't, work for you this time, Harrison and I both didn't get into the National Youth Theatre for the first time, and I didn't get into drama school the first time I tried either. So it's not like everything's on this moment. This is just something you can do, see what happens, and then if it doesn't happen, try again next year. It's good that you just went through this experience. Okay, let's get to the recall. So let's say you've all got a recall now. And let's imagine Harrison's got a recall. So we're going to do this from sort of the eyes of the National Youth Theatre, but I do know that drama schools do this very similarly. So if you have a recall, you would come onto a chat with, say, myself on Zoom, and it would be a 20-minute recall. And in that time, I would ask you to do some acting, and we'll also just do some general chatting as well. And there'll also be an assistant on our on the call as well, so who will be there to support you. Now, how do we do this recall acting on Zoom? Well, we thought the best way to show you is to get Harrison to do a little bit of acting for us, so we can see it. We can see it working. Now, sometimes what we do at NYT is I would hide myself from the screen, so Harrison wouldn't actually be able to see me. And that's something you can ask. You can say, you know, we'll probably ask you, would you rather that we took ourselves off the screen? Because it can be incredibly distracting, can't it? So we can take ourselves off the screen. So Harrison, you're going to do a speech for us now, aren't you? So explain a bit, what speech are you doing?
Yes, so I'm doing Coriolanus from Shakespeare. It's one of his classical tragedies. And at this point in the play, Coriolanus, who's a military general, has come to the Senate to speak to the senators and explain why he should be the one in charge of leading Rome in their battle against the Volscians. And he's telling the Senate that he feels that the normal people and kind of like the common people are not able and fit enough to lead Rome to victory. And it's up to him to be able to take his power as a leader and lead them through the war, as opposed to allowing Rome to go to kind of rack and ruin due to Brutus and Caecilius, who are kind of his opposites within the state of Rome.
Right. So what I'd probably do at this stage is at this stage in an audition, I would always ask, why did you choose this speech? So be prepared for that question, because you'll get asked that a lot. So Harrison, why did you choose this speech?
Yeah, I chose this piece because recently I've wanted to kind of explore a bit more Shakespeare. And at first I never really kind of understood the language. So I kind of set myself a task in lockdown to see how many Shakespeares I could get through. And the reason kind of Coriolanus stuck out to me is it felt like the characters were very distinct within the society. And it really explored kind of like this masculine mentality that military kind of men have. And I thought it was a really interesting story to see how these military leaders contend with people in kind of society and how they deal with kind of the common person who's a civilian, as opposed to how they maybe deal with war and conflict. So Coriolanus is kind of this leader who's strong and very independent and speaks his mind. And I thought the way he kind of interacts with the normal common person was really interesting to me. So I wanted to kind of see if I could play around with the text and kind of the character who he was and how he would deal with the people he speaks to.
Nice, good. So that's a good answer, isn't it? So what do I get to know about Harrison from that answer? He really wants to challenge himself. He wants to learn more about the text. He's obviously thought about the concept of the play. He knows about it. He enjoys it. So think about that, because people will ask you why you chose the speech you've chosen, because in a way you've cast yourself in your own play. So I always think it's really interesting, because there's so many speeches you could have chosen, but you chose that one. So why did you choose it? Again, I wouldn't say there's any wrong answer to this. Just be truthful. Why did you choose it? And hopefully you will have chosen it for good reasons, not just, oh God, I just couldn't find anything else.
Had to find one.
Yeah, find one. You should choose it because you're really connected to it. So that's the point where we want to know about your truth and your connection. So then I probably wouldn't do much more talking, because I know that my auditionee is probably thinking, oh, I've got to do the acting soon. So if I hold back too long, I am going to make them nervous. So I'd say, okay, Harrison, let's go for it. However you feel like you want to do it right now, let's just give it a go.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. I'll give my reasons, more worthier than their voices. They know the corn was not our recompense. Resting well assured, they near did service for it. Being pressed to the war, even when the navel of the state was touched, they would not thread the gates. This kind of service did not deserve corn gratis. Being ith war, their mutinies and revolts wherein they showed most valour spoke not for them. The accusation, which they have often made against the Senate, all cause unborn, could never be the native of our so frank donation. Well, what then? How shall this bosom multiplied digest the Senate's courtesy? Let deeds express what's like to be their words. We did request it, we are the greater poll, and in true fear they gave us our demands. Thus we debase the nature of our seats and make the rabble call our cares fears, which will in time break ope the locks of the Senate and bring in the crows to peck the eagles.
Great, well done. That was fab. Really, really good job. So what have I got from Harrison after he's done that? So I've got a really focused performance from Harrison. I wouldn't be saying this, by the way. This is such a but I would be thinking, right, so I've got a really focused performance from Harrison. He's really clear on what he's wanting, and he didn't start too big, which is great to see. Harrison, where were you looking during that?
So I decided, because my circumstance is a room full of people, I kind of thought if I could maybe have a couple of my partners to the right of me, just off center of the camera, as there's some of my partners who maybe I don't like so much. And then the person that I'm trying to really kind of commit my objective to and my intention, I used as the camera. As you said before, Abby, you can maybe slightly just place it off to the side so my eye line is there. But I just thought maybe in terms of Zoom, we could play around with kind of looking at the camera. Again, I'm not sure if that came across as distracting. But like you said, you can play with the idea of maybe just being off center, using the camera, or like you said, maybe have the option of using the other person on screen if you both feel comfortable with kind of keeping your camera on as well.
Yeah, I found that really impactful, you acting down the camera in that. And because it's such a direct speech, I really want something, I need something to be done, you need to listen to me. I found that really impactful. And the way you use the camera was brilliant. I really like that use of the camera. So now we are using cameras in these auditions. I do think it's important. You can play with it. And I know that in some of these recalls, the people are getting you to play with it a bit more. So using that is interesting. So before you do your recall, if you get a recall for drama school or National Youth Theatre, I would say to practice your recall with someone, get someone on a call, someone you trust, and say, can we just do a faux audition so I can do my speech? Because imagine if this was the first time that you'd done it like this, it is very distracting. So do a practice run with someone, and then you can gather, what works going forward. And actually it is quite nice. I've done some acting before where I'm sort of minimized and I'm really looking at the person on the screen, so like I'm acting with that other person. And this is also something you can ask the person in the room with you, your auditioner, say, do you mind if I look down the camera? Because when you're in the room, sometimes you can ask. Some people love it when they look you want to look them in the eye and they really want to look you in the eye. But sometimes if I'm auditioning someone, I don't want someone to act with me just because I feel like I can't give my all back to them. I feel like it's unfair on them because I might be writing something. So I usually say, well, act with my assistant next to me. But here it's quite nice because you can be acting with the person on the screen. They don't even know that you're looking at them. Or if you're looking down, I know that you can't see me, so I don't feel so exposed and like I have to act with you. But it's a conversation you can have that conversation, because you just don't want to be, because there's no right or wrong answer with it, and the person who's auditioning you might have a preference. So say, okay, where do you want me to direct this? Where should I direct this? I'm talking to this person. I was thinking I could be using you on the screen, and they'll say yes or no, or maybe we could do it like this. It's a creative conversation. So hopefully they'll lead you to where that goes. Now, that was a really strong performance from Harrison. So what I'd be thinking is, right, I know Harrison can do direct, he can get his point across, but can Harrison be playful? Can he change that? So I've only got 20 minutes with someone in the room, so I need to be able to see if you can do lots of different things. So then I would redirect you to do something different at this point. We might have spoken a bit more about objectives. Who are you talking to? What's at stake? Maybe we could just add a bit more of a journey. I would say potentially at the beginning let's play with it a bit more. I'd say maybe let's do it actually. Can we do the first few lines?
Yeah.
And can you act like you're completely like a bit like nonplussed?
Yeah, sure thing.
Try the opposite from what you were doing, as if it's a bit more like passive aggressive in a way.
Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Just the first 3 lines, say.
Okay. I'll give my reasons, more worthier than their voices. They know the corn was not our recompense. Resting well assured, they ne'er did service for it, of being pressed to the war. Even when the navel of the state was touched, they would not thread the gates.
Nice. Pause there. So, like, I wouldn't say that's the way you should do it, but as the director, what I'm looking for is Harrison going to take my direction? Is he going to think, is he going to sort of fight me on that, or is he going to go, oh cool, I'll just try it, and we might go, yeah, it works, or we might say, oh no, it doesn't. So there's no right or wrong, but you've just got to go for it. So what I would say is, okay, so Harrison,
Yes.
that was a really direct, clear performance of that speech with a huge amount of strength. Now, can we completely flip it on its head? Can we imagine that you're in a comedy club, and there's lots of people in this club, they're being really noisy, really rowdy, and you've got to get their attention, but it's a comedy club, so you've got to make them laugh. They're going to boo you out if you're not funny, so you've got to make them laugh. Okay. So let's see what Harrison does with this.
Well, I'll give my reasons, more worthier than their voices. They know the corn was not our recompense. Resting well assured, they near did service for it, being pressed to the war, even when the navel of the state was touched. They would not thread the gates. This kind of service did not deserve corn gratis.
Good, stop there. I love that. Corn gratis suddenly just like changed, like that. Yeah, it's brilliant. Lovely. Good. So I can see there Harrison's prepared just to go, right, get the rule book and throw it out. And that's really exciting to see, isn't it? As a director, and you can all see watching it right now, you think, oh, that's exciting. So then I've seen that, so maybe I want to see something else. Let's carry on playing. So I'd say, okay, Harrison, I want you to imagine you are putting a baby to sleep. And the baby is in your arms, so you're gonna be talking to the baby, but this baby just has this, you can't put this baby to sleep without doing this speech every day. That's how the baby gets to sleep. So let's say we're maybe you haven't had much sleep yourself, but it's really important, this baby really needs to go to sleep, but you have to say this speech to this baby. Let's try that.
Give my reasons, more worthier than their voices. They know the corn was not our recompense. Resting well assured, they near did service for it. Being pressed to the wall, even when the navel of the state was touched, they would not thread the gates. This kind of service did not deserve corn gratis. Being if war, their mutinies and revolts wherein they showed most valour spoke not for them. Being pressed to the gate, even when the navel of the state was touched, they would not thread the gates. Is that all right?
Yeah, good. Good. The baby went to sleep. Well done.
Yeah, he went to sleep.
Yes, I can see Harrison there. He's playful, and he's going to take it a direction, and then he's going to sort of mould it into his own thing and create, you know, a little story of his own. And it's really nice for me to be able to see that. So see direction as your opportunity to shine and your opportunity to show how creative you are and open you are as a performer. Getting direction is quite a fun thing, but don't come out of it and think, right, next time I've got to do this speech as if I'm doing it at a comedy club, because most of the time this direction is just to see how you play with it in the room, and it changes from person to person. You know, we're all different as directors and practitioners, so what someone might want to see is different from someone else. So I think the next stage of this is then we'd have a chat. So drama schools, they'd ask you questions about, you know, why this drama school? Why do you want to go to this drama? So Harrison, I know you go to Stella Adler in New York, don't you? So yeah. Why did you want to go there? What would you have answered to that question?
I think one of the main kind of pulling factors for me was the opportunity to study abroad. I think it's so important as actors to be able to try and gain as much kind of life experiences and just experiences in general. And the fact that I had the opportunity to train at a drama school and it being a completely new environment that was completely alien to me really kind of attracted me to the school. And I'd also say the fact that the course kind of felt like it took many different avenues. The teachers are kind of very diverse there. And they teach lots of different types of techniques, which I think is important as an actor to try and get as many different tools and techniques as we can to see which ones we feel like we're attracted to and like to play with, and maybe the ones that we're not so comfortable with. And I felt like that's what Stella was offering, was this chance to study in a foreign country while kind of getting a diverse training, which is what their course offered to me.
Yeah. So that's like a really clear answer, which is very specific to that school. Because sometimes when we audition for drama school, we know it's a process, and you might not get in, and you might so you usually audition for a few at once. But make sure you do know about each of those schools. So why is that school important to you? Each school is very different in the way they are and the way they teach and their essence, and all beautiful in their own ways. So really figure out why that school, and if that takes potentially contacting some people who went there or go there, you can see alumni. It's really important to talk to them, know what their experience was like. Another question they might ask you is why do you want to be an actor? And I know that's a really difficult question, because it is a difficult question. I'd find that difficult now. But some people do ask that, why this career? Why do you want to do it? So have thought about that before you start. And why now? Because what you might find is at different ages at a drama school, you might feel more ready at a certain age, or they might think you would be better in a few years' time. The National Youth Theatre, we take people from, you could audition at 14, I think from 15 to 25. It's a really long audition process. So you can start at different times. You might be ready at 15 and you might get loads out of it, but you might be ready a few years later. And we've seen a lot of people audition, and we run the courses, so sometimes we can get a feel. We think, okay, maybe not this year, but it doesn't mean you're not fantastic and have heaps of potential. But come back next year, and if you want it enough, you will come back that next year. And it's the same with drama schools as well. So why now? They might say, why do you think this is right for you now? And again, have spoken to people, know who went to that drama school, know why. You should know why if you're applying for that school. Harrison and I spoke earlier about questions to ask. Now, this is a difficult one in any interview, actually. What do you say when they say, have you got any questions? Now, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer to this. It's not like you have to ask a question. If everything's been asked, then that's fine. I would say that's something you should think about before you get into the room, though. That's one of those pre-thoughts. So what is it that you do want to know that hasn't been asked? It can be a bit hard sometimes when you're just trying to think on the spot, and you might ask something that afterwards you might think, I don't know if I actually even needed to know that. I just thought maybe they wanted to see if I was interested. So really have a think. So Harrison, what was it? I think we were saying earlier, what did you ask your drama schools or NYT? What sort of questions have you asked in auditions?
So one of the key things for me is that idea of figuring out, because each kind of drama school might have a different kind of twist and take on its course, depending on, again, the kind of course you're going for in drama school. I think one of the key things that I always want to learn is what kind of things do they teach on the course, and is it a diverse training program? I know some schools kind of sometimes really focus on certain practitioners. The reason I picked Stella is because they very much focused on the kind of Stella Adler technique while bringing in loads of other techniques. So one of my key questions when I was auditioning for drama school was this idea. I'd be asking them, so what kind of like specifications on the course did they have, and did they maybe focus on maybe some sort of particular practitioners or certain skills? Because I know some courses can be for physical theatre or like musical theatre or actor musician, and kind of figuring out, well, is this kind of course right for me? Because do I want to just primarily focus on acting, or do I want to see if I can develop my skills as a singer, as a musician? So yeah, a key thing, like you said, is figuring out if you feel like this school is right for you, and what is it about this particular school that sets them apart from all the others.
Perfect. Somewhere like the National Youth Theatre, obviously you can be in it for such a long time, so 15 to 25, it's a long time you can be in it. So at different stages, it can mean different things to you. So once you're in the company, you can audition to be in the rep company that's been going for quite a few years now. And the idea of ensemble is really important to us, and we put on lots of different shows, and we do a lot of different stuff, so there's quite a lot to ask with NYT. So just make sure you've seen what's been going on. I think a top tip as well is, when shows are happening again, know what show just happened at the drama school and potentially try and go and see it. Or it's great because now you can see so much online. When I was applying for drama schools, I went to all the showcases, I went to the shows. I went National Youth Theatre, I used to go to all the shows, just so when I was in my audition I could say, I've seen the shows and this is what I thought, and this is interesting, and these people I would think are fantastic, and I actually really aspire to be like them. So if you show a real vested interest, it really makes our ears ping up. We go, oh, that's interesting. And the same goes for if this is your second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth time auditioning. That is absolutely nothing on you. It shows that you are driven, you want it, you're here again. Hi, it's me again. And most people, the majority of people do not get into their drama school or the National Youth Theatre first time. So please do not let that put you off, because it just might not be your year, and that's fine. You'll come back next year, and even in the audition process, we really hope that you get something from it, especially with the National Youth Theatre, when we can be in the room again together. Those 3 hours, when I run those workshops, I do that like I'm doing any professional workshop with professional actors, and I want you to come away from it feeling like you've really learned something, not that you've just been having an audition that day. And I think a lot of people do feel like that when they come out of it. Okay, so we're nearly finished. So I just want to run through some major top tips just before we end and get on some questions. So remember, when picking a speech, pick something that you connect with, that's close to your age and close to your accent. You really need to feel like you can be that person. Be your own casting director and cast yourself well, because you don't get to do that a lot in this career. So you get to do it this time though, so that's really exciting. When you're recording a self-tape, make sure you've got nothing crazy in the background. It's got to be all about you. Get a lamp on you. I've got a lamp on me right now, so make sure you're lit well. You don't have to show your whole body for the National Youth Theatre anyway. And do a few tests, but don't record it too many times, because you'll put yourself off in the end. And if you just don't like the way you're doing it that day, leave it for the next day. Give yourself a break. I always find that when I move away from it and come back to it the next day, I'll feel better, I'll feel fresher. And when you're auditioning on Zoom, top tip is to, even though you're not in the room, play. And they might get you to play with your surroundings. So I know that in some drama school auditions, they'll ask you to touch things around the room, and might ask you to move around the room a little bit in those recalls. So make sure whatever space you're in is accessible to you, so you haven't just got this like little square and rubbish all on the floor, because they might want you to start getting physical, because they want to see how you move physically, which I know is a bit difficult on Zoom. But make sure that space is accessible, and make sure no one's making any noise around you. If you can bribe them to go to the shops for that 20 minutes or something, or just to be really quiet, so you're not thinking about that outside the room. And ultimately, this experience is about showing you, and you are good enough. You don't need to be playing someone, when you're talking, or, you're your own USP, you're your own biggest selling point. No one else is you, which is the great thing to know. So instead of thinking, oh, I wish I was a bit more like that or that, no, you are absolutely perfect as you are. So know that before you go into recording your self-tapes or having your Zoom auditions, because you'll bring a sense of, I should be here. And what I've got to offer is really special for you today, because no one else is going to give you this, because no one else is me. me, basically. So I just want to say a massive thank you to Harrison for acting for us today. It was lovely to see. Really, really, really great job. And thank you so much for listening to us. I hope you found it helpful and useful.
That was really great. Thank you so much, both of you, for being so thorough, but also showing what these things mean in actual practical terms. So we've had a few questions, which I'm going to run through with you now. I know you touched upon spoken word poetry earlier, but just in case there was anything else you wanted to add, Chloe has asked, Chloe Sweetlove, lovely name. For the NYT auditions, I've seen that spoken word poetry is an option. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's quite special. And I think, so at NYT, we really encourage creativity. A lot of our members write the plays. We constantly do R&Ds of plays, of pieces, of spoken word. And lots of people in the National Youth Theatre community are really into spoken word. And there's lots of plays that use a lot of spoken word at the moment. So I think spoken word is absolutely lovely if that's your thing. Just one thing, just remember to perform it, so because spoken word is really performative, and I would imagine you'd be performing it, but have some sort of character to it. Make sure it's got an element of performance rather than just a read piece. Learn it like you do your monologue, and give us a character with it. Give us some attitudes, whatever that is, and some feeling, some inner emotion with it. And I think it's a really nice thing to see. But again, if it's not your thing, don't worry about it. It's not like you get extra points for it. It's just, if it is your thing and you think that you can really show yourself off with it, absolutely go for it.
Love it. Okay, they're coming in thick and fast. So if I'm like shooting questions at you, I am sorry, but pew pew. Okay, so somebody has asked, what is the difference between green screen and blue screen? I think they mean a blue screen behind you for a tape. Is there, what's the benefit of that?
Well, I don't think the colour really makes a difference. Harrison has very blue eyes. So as you can see, that blue's really bringing out the blue in his eyes. So Harrison, is that why you went for a blue background?
I think that was one of the kind of reasons, and I think the main one, like you were saying before, Abby, is to have kind of that plain background is less distraction. So it can be just as simple as like using something like a plain white wall is just as good. I think, if you're thinking about doing a lot of your auditions via self-tapes, things like this can just kind of really kind of enhance your look, I guess. So if you've got £20 from pocket money, spend it wisely.
Yeah, so no particular reason.
Yeah.
Great. Perfect. Okay, so somebody has asked, how can I switch after finishing a monologue from one play to another during an audition?
That's actually a really good question. So with NYT, I know you don't have to do more than one, but what people have been doing in general, they have been cutting their audition up. So people have been doing their little intro, then they cut, and then it will go into another, they've like edited it together. Now, you can do that, but you don't have to do that. I would say take that time, so don't be rushed by that. It's always nice to see someone really like sinking into the character in the room. We know that you're not on stage doing it. We're understanding that you're in a room trying to think of the circumstances around it, and you can't just go straight into it. You need to think, right, where am I? Who am I? What do I want? What's the first line of my monologue? So imagine you finished your first monologue. If you don't want to cut it, which you can do, you can cut it, and then if you've got some editing skills on like iMovie or something, then you can just do another shot. But if it does have to be one long shot, which I do know that, so just take a second, don't rush, fall out of that character, and then really think about where you are, who you are, and then go into it. So don't rush. Yeah, absolutely, don't rush.
Yeah, great. Very good. Somebody has asked, how would you dress for a self-tape? Would you dress as the character or neutrally?
That's a really good question. I think in professional land, you would sort of hint towards the character. If you were doing, so for example, Harrison's wearing a shirt right now, and his character was quite authoritative. So it's sort of, if this was like professional audition, I think, yeah, that sort of matches that vibe. But with drama school auditions, I wouldn't be that, I wouldn't worry about it. With National Youth Theatre, I wouldn't worry about it. I say wear something that isn't distracting. It's just a plain t-shirt. I wouldn't have any distracting sort of face makeup on or like a big bow in my hair. Just think of it as, we want to just see you in your raw state. And like, usually when you go to drama school, you end up having to sort of strip it all away just to see like the raw you anyway. So anything that's going to take away from us seeing you, I wouldn't encourage you to do. So plain, I'd go for a plain top. Nothing too distracting, basically.
Great. Cool. So Freya White has asked, what kind of things make an audition stand out?
So in general, in auditions, what I find stands out to me is when someone is really comfortable in their being, in their ability, and they're there and they've got a nice energy. It might be a nervous energy, I don't know what it is. There's some energy there, but ultimately they're comfortable in what they're doing. So it's a really difficult one because, you know, all auditions are so different and everyone is so different, and that's what we want. We want a diverse group of people. You know, we don't want to see the same thing. We don't want to see the same actors on TV all the time, and one actor is so different from the other. So I think the difference is, and the thing that makes someone stand out is just when they are focused, they've got a real clarity in what they're doing, and they've really thought about what they've got something to say. They've got something to say through their acting and through the answers to their questions. If they've really thought about it, that sort of that extra, they've gone the extra mile of thought. I find that fascinating, because you have to do that all the time as an actor. You've got to read underneath the surface. So do that work around your pieces, and then you will stand out because it will be good.
Yeah. This is just such an opportunity, because I've never been involved in drama school auditions before. I do auditions for specific briefs all the time. And this is like the only opportunity you're really going to get to be like, this is the type of actor that I want to be, and not overthink like, what do they want me to be for this role? So you can just be really open with it. I think passion is always the winner though, isn't it? Just having that passion. So one for you, Harrison, actually. Any tips for teenagers who have started acting? So when did you start with NYT? Were you a teen?
Yeah, so I was 17 when I started, and as Abby said before, I'd auditioned and I didn't get in. And then my second audition, I completely forgot my monologue, guys, and made one up. So it goes to show you, it can get even worse. But the good thing about that is it gives you these experiences to kind of like really try and take ownership of who you are as a performer and try and deal with those situations. My main piece of advice is this: I mean, you're all here, like you've taken the time to come on this call and listen to what we have to say, and that's half of it. There's a lot of people who want to do things in life, but they don't take the time or find the time to get these opportunities to learn more. So I think the more you can learn from, you know, people within the National Youth Theatre, Backstage, any kind of school environment, that's, you're going to improve no matter what. And especially being young, just become aware of life around you. I mean, within your family environment, within your friends' environments, just socially, when we can escape out of the houses, because acting is about representing everybody. And as a young person, I feel, I mean, I'm only 21, but we have a really nice understanding of trying to be empathetic towards everybody. So the more we can learn about people and who they are and why they do the things they do, you know, the better actor you're going to be. But you're here, you're on this call, which is big kudos for you guys. So that's my little tip of the day.
Yeah, cool. Somebody has asked, hi Abigail, what were your favorite bits about training at Mountview? What did they offer you that you thought other schools could not?
Oh wow! So I went to Mountview I did a master's at Mountview. So I went to university, and then I went to Mountview, and then I did the rep company at NYT. Oh, I loved Mount View. So for me, I was always really big. I loved musical theatre. I love singing, but my dancing is not great, and I didn't really want to be a dancer. I was never naturally going to be good enough, which is very sad. So I knew that Mount View had amazing. Reputation for musical theatre and singing. So, but I did the acting course as a master's, and oh gosh, I just learned so much. It was so diverse what I learned, but I learned a huge amount about just believing and being and understanding character, understanding ways in which to break down text. The way I had to break down text there, that taught me something that I've taken on forever. Doing the work is really important. I think working on a text is really important. I think actors are text detectives, so you have to find the clues, and it's so exciting. And Mount View really built me up. Taught me so many techniques to break down text, which helped me as an actor and as a teacher and as a director. Really appreciated it, and I got to sing loads, which I absolutely loved. So yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. So then I did that for a year, and then I did the rep company afterwards for a year, and I got to like put it all into practice practically.
Amazing. So talking about breaking down a speech, we've actually got another slate session which we did with National Youth Theatre, which I really recommend everyone checking out, where we broke down a speech with Matt Harrison, and it's incredible. What did you just say? They were text detectives.
Text detectives. It's like that. I always say it, and it's so hard to say, but we're text detectives.
Love it. So I'm just going to ask a couple more questions. I'm sorry if we can't get to yours, but Summer Gibbons has asked, how do you find the confidence to reevaluate your work and improve if you don't get into somewhere and you feel disheartened?
It's so difficult, that, you know, that is the most difficult part about being in a creative industry. I have to do a lot of stepping back. So after I've done something, and if, you know, it hasn't gone my way or I didn't get there, I just have to step back from it for a minute and go, okay, I'm a bit annoyed about that, or oh, that's upset me a bit. That is absolutely fine to not be okay with it for a minute. Because I think that if you go along being like, oh no, oh gosh, it's fine. Oh, I love getting rejected. It's my favorite, but you know, it's not fun. So it's okay not to be okay. Talk to someone about it, ring someone, say, oh, I'm so annoyed, da, da, da. And then reflect back on it. Look back on it and think, okay, so what is this? Why did that? And then you might not know, and you might think, oh, I don't know, maybe I should just leave it. Because honestly, I can tell you from the other side, and I'm sure Hannah can say this as well, the reason why you might not get somewhere or do something probably really isn't to do with your talent. It's a very saturated industry. There's lots of people applying, and it might just not be your time. So it is remembering, which is really difficult. It's remembering that it might not be you. And if it is something to do with you, just keep going to workshops, keep doing things like this, keep watching, keep playing, keep applying for things, because you will only get better. Your experience will only ever make you better. It won't make you worse. So allow yourself to be annoyed with it and go, oh, I'm really annoyed that I didn't get in. I tried really hard. And then reflect, you know, leave it a week and then reflect back on it and talk to someone you trust about it. And then keep pushing through. Go and try and do something to have fun with it. The next time you do it, go to a fun workshop that you think you might enjoy just for enjoyment's sake. One where you can just play, or like get friends who you know are into performing and go and do some like improv or something really silly, just to go, oh, no, this is why I love this. Oh no, it's really nice. I do love this. Okay, I'll try again. But no pressure. Don't put that pressure on yourself, because it won't get you anywhere.
Yeah, really nice. Just for context as well, so people know about the level of competition for something like NYT. Do you have any basic numbers on how many applications you get and how many spaces you have?
Yeah, I'm not too sure at the moment, but I know a few years ago, so let's say, I don't know, maybe I can't think. Look, thousands. So it's in the thousands that people audition, and maybe 5 or 10% get in. I can't think right now. But I think it's 1 in 5 or something. But it is a lot. So there is a lot.
Yeah. I mean, the people, for anybody who's come into this conversation today and they don't know too much about NYT, just go and check out the testimonials, or there's like a page for people who've the alumni of NYT, and you'll see and understand why there's so many people who really want to be part of NYT. We've had a couple of people asking about international students and if they can apply to NYT.
Well, sort of the good thing is if there are digital courses, which there was last year, no one had to go anywhere. So yes, international was absolutely something we could do then. I'm not 100% sure on this year, because if they are in person, because usually they take place, I think we're changing where they're taking place this year, but I don't know if we've announced that yet, so I'm not going to say that. But usually it would be, we would do the courses, the summer courses, because you apply to be a member of the National Youth Theatre. And when you get in, you come and do a 2 or 3 week summer course. So where it's like a really intense course with a course director, with someone like myself, and it's like a mini, sort of, I can't explain it, not to say drama school experience, but it's very intense experience of sort of training and becoming part of the company. So I do think you would have to physically be there, but don't quote me on that because everything's changing. So keep your eyes peeled on that, and do email NYT and ask them about it, because I'm sure they'll know more in the office.
Yeah, amazing. I really can't recommend looking into NYT enough if you haven't already. They've been a great partner to Backstage, but also for my casting work, I go to Backstage. I go to Backstage all the time, but I go to National Youth Theatre all the time when I'm looking for younger actors. So we know that it is a great talent incubator, and if you can get yourself in there, then you're on to a winner. So thank you, everyone. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all your questions, as I say. Abby, Harry, you've done so amazing today, and I've learned loads myself. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
So much. Thank you.
And just before we go, just to let everybody know, this has been recorded and it is going to go on our YouTube. So have a look at that shortly. And when I say shortly, I mean a couple of days. And do you want to shout out any social media handles for NYT, Abby? Or
yeah, well, you'll find them on everything basically. So at National Youth Theatre or NYT of GB or something, but you'll find them. Just look them up and you'll find them. And there's so many. As Hannah said, the alumni is really impressive, but also the people you meet and then end up working with in the future as well. It's kept me working basically, because you meet so many people and you become a big community. So yeah, it's a big family, and we always want to welcome more amazing, talented young people. So please do audition. I'd love to see your tapes personally.
Amazing. Thank you so much, guys. Have a lovely Wednesday, rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.